So why RiffStream? Where did the word RiffStream come from? It's a process that we developed a few years ago, and we've been testing it in Cambridge, and it seems to work quite well. And basically, for those of you who have any kind of musical background, think about you play a chord and you put a few chords together to create a riff. And so the idea here is that in order to create new things, you need to bring technology products together with markets. And I think this is particularly true when you have an emerging market like smart grids and smart power, because by definition we're trying to do new things. So some of the products and services are new, and the business models are very new. And most of you sitting in this audience will appreciate that, especially those of you who built advanced products and then being faced by senior management saying, but where's the money? And so business models are really going to have to innovate in this space. And then with that comes the need to innovate channels to market, how you actually sell what you're going to take into the market. So the idea today is, think of this as we're all auditioning for this new market space. Okay. This is the obligatory thing. So what does AcceleratorIndia do? We basically are involved in trying to do cross-border business acceleration. So we have a mixture of business people, technology people, and for me, whether we're successful or not is really judged by how many collaborations have been signed up, how much money has changed hand, how much revenue is being generated across borders in markets which otherwise would not have been open to people. And people are very fond of talking about a flat earth. I don't believe that. I think we have very different market structures in the emerging territories versus what I call the mature economies. And I prefer the word mature to advanced or developed, because mature economies display certain characteristics which are different from emerging economies, which is what India is. So the energy, the enthusiasm, the volatility, all that excitement is what comes with the territory. So it's an exciting journey. So the key drivers, and I suspect everybody sitting in this room knows what these drivers are. Really, we've had a brief comment about losses, and some of these things will come out in the conversation. But essentially, the need for what we might call smart power in India is driven by those key things, which is the whole growth situation in terms of lack of generational capacity, the huge losses in capacity that's been generated, and then in actually managing that demand. And there's one point I want to bring out here, which is the difference in perceptions around demand management between mature economies and emerging economies. And so in the mature economies, when people talk about demand management, they're talking about very fine micromanagement of billing and demand management in situations where there may be a surplus of energy. And we're talking about something very, very different in emerging economies. So quite a lot of the thinking that comes from smart grids in Europe and North America may be completely inappropriate to what's happening in the Indian market. And that's one of the things we want to try and make sure people understand as they're building products and services. And so this is a slide which is extremely detailed, but the key point about this is that when you're creating new products and services to try and take into markets, you need to understand the relationship between technology and markets. And this is something I've been trying to do for the last 20 years. And so if you have, say, a technology which is for sensing current sensing coil technology, that's the base technology, sits all the way at the back there. How that links into what a utility customer will pay for is one of the big challenges. The other way to look at the smart grid is think of it as the old challenge of lots of moving parts. Because there's so many moving parts like in a gear train, and in order to make money you need to get the right selector gears lined up. Because you may have the best product, the best meter for example, but you may not have the right business model or know how to connect that into the marketplace. So the point of that slide is to say that you need to understand the coupling between what you're trying to do and the market. And also importantly to understand where you're playing. Who's your end customer? Is it actually the utility? Is it an integrator? Is it a meter manufacturer? And there are several meter manufacturers here. And all these challenges create opportunities. So do you move from being a meter manufacturer to being an end-to-end player, or do you do something different? So lots of questions of strategy here as well. And then this is, if you like, this is a picture that my colleague Arun put together. Arun's been spending a lot of time traveling around India, and so he knows lots of utilities. And He's given me the pleasure of visiting some of these power utilities. And that really, for me, is quite an interesting illustration of the complexity of the ecosystem that we're actually talking about. And so when we talk outside to people, and you mentioned the word smart grid, think, it's a bit of computing and power, and what's the big deal? But in reality, as we know, it's very, very complicated. Everything from module subsystem through meters, through the interfaces to connect, and then meter data management systems, the SIs, taking all this data back up to policy layer at the point at which utilities can make business decisions. And the interesting question when you have an ecosystem like this is it creates opportunities for different companies to play at different points in the value chain, but it also means that people need to decide where they're going to focus their efforts, because you can't be everything to everybody.